Snake in the Eagle's Shadow didn't just change kung fu movies. It shattered everything audiences thought they knew. Before this film, martial arts meant blood, vengeance, and stone-faced heroes. Then came a janitor who fought like a drunk comedian, and suddenly, the genre exploded. But behind the laughter and the lightning-fast kicks, nothing was simple. The star was broke and ready to quit. The director gambled his entire reputation, and one fight scene, it nearly ended with a broken neck. These are 20 weird facts about Snake in the Eagle's Shadow. And wait for the bonus, because there's a move so dangerous, Jackie Chan only performed it once, and swore he'd never try it again. Let's strike fast. Number 1. Before Snake in the Eagle's Shadow, Jackie Chan was done. Not tired, not frustrated, done. He'd spent years trying to be the next Bruce Lee, and it wasn't working. Lo Wei, his former director, had pushed him into 2 Bruce Lee knockoffs that bombed at the box office. The studio didn't know what to do with him. Audiences didn't care. And Jackie, he was ready to walk away from film entirely and return to stunt work where at least people appreciated what he could do. He'd been training since he was 6 years old at the China Drama Academy, enduring a brutal regimen that would break most adults. And yet here he was at 23, broke, directionless, with a contract he couldn't escape, and a reputation for being Bruce Lee's cheap replacement. Then came a phone call that changed everything. Yingxi Yuan, a producer with a wild idea, wanted to make something different. Not another revenge film, not another stoic warrior story, but a comedy. Jackie thought he was joking. Kung fu comedies had been tried before and failed miserably. But Ng insisted, and he had one more card to play. He'd hired Yuan Wuping, a choreographer who understood that fighting could be more than just violence. It could be art, it could be dance, and most importantly, it could be funny. Jackie agreed to one more film, not because he believed in it, but because he had nothing left to lose. Number 2. Yuan Wuping wasn't supposed to be a director. He was a stunt coordinator and fight choreographer, the guy behind the scenes making other people look good. He'd grown up in the same brutal training world as Jackie, learning from his father, martial arts director Yuan Xiutian, who would later play the old beggar master in the film. But Yuan had vision. He'd watched the martial arts genre stagnate, trapped in endless cycles of revenge plots and emotionless heroes. He knew there was another way because he'd grown up watching silent comedies, studying Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin, understanding how physical comedy could tell a story better than dialogue ever could. When Yingxi Yuan offered him the director's chair for Snake in the Eagle's Shadow, he didn't hesitate, but he also didn't have a safety net. If this failed, he'd be blacklisted. No studio would trust a choreographer turned director who couldn't deliver. So Yuan made a choice that seemed insane to everyone around him. He threw out the traditional kung fu formula completely. No revenge quest, no dead master flashbacks, no final showdown motivated by honor. Instead, he created a story about a nobody, a janitor so low on the social ladder that even beggars looked down on him. And he made that janitor funny, clumsy, human. The studio executives watched early footage and panicked, calling it too silly, too strange. But Yuan kept shooting because he understood something they didn't. Audiences were tired of untouchable heroes. They wanted someone they could laugh with, not just cheer for. Number 3. The film's villain, played by Huang Zhongli, was nicknamed the Bootmaster for one terrifying reason. His kicks were so fast and so powerful that stunt performers refused to work with him without extra padding. Huang wasn't an actor playing a martial artist. He was a legitimate taekwondo master with a 7th degree black belt, and when he threw a kick on set, you felt it even if it didn't connect. During one early scene, he accidentally clipped a stunt double in the ribs during what was supposed to be a controlled sequence. The impact cracked bone. Production stopped for 3 hours while medics evaluated the injury, and when they returned, the entire crew approached Huang differently. Not with anger, but with respect and caution. Jackie Chan studied him obsessively between takes, watching how Huang loaded his weight, how he chambered his leg, how he could generate force from seemingly impossible angles. Years later, Jackie would say that Huang taught him more about real fighting in 3 weeks than he'd learned in a decade of choreographed film work. But on set, the dynamic was nerve-wracking. Every sparring sequence carried genuine danger because Huang's precision, while incredible, left almost no margin for error. If Jackie mistimed a block by even a fraction of a second, he'd take the full force of a kick designed to break boards. And yet, that danger translated directly to the screen, giving their fights an intensity that choreographed sequences rarely achieved. Number 4. Jackie's character, Qian Fu, wasn't just clumsy for laughs. He was designed to be the complete opposite of every kung fu hero audiences had ever seen. In traditional martial arts films, the protagonist starts with natural talent or hidden noble bloodlines. They're destined for greatness. Qian Fu was destined for nothing. He swept floors, got kicked around by everyone at his school, and when he tried to defend himself, he failed spectacularly. This wasn't heroic, it was humiliating, and that's exactly what made it revolutionary. Jackie played him with genuine vulnerability, taking pratfalls that would make silent film comedians jealous, absorbing punishment with exaggerated reactions that somehow made the violence funny instead of brutal. But beneath the comedy was something real. Jackie drew from his own experience. He knew what it felt like to be underestimated, to be told he wasn't good enough, to watch opportunities go to others while he struggled for scraps. Every moment of Qian Fu's humiliation on screen reflected something Jackie had lived, and that authenticity showed. When Qian Fu finally learned to fight back, audiences didn't just laugh, they cheered because they'd invested in his journey from nothing to something. The character's arc wasn't about revenge or honor. It was about self-respect, about proving to himself more than anyone else that he mattered. And in 1978, in a genre dominated by invincible heroes, that was radical. Number 5. The snake style wasn't just made up for the movie. It's a legitimate kung fu technique. But the way it's portrayed in the film, that's pure Yuan Wu-Ping innovation. Traditional snake style emphasizes precision strikes, targeting pressure points in vulnerable areas with fingers formed into a snake head shape. It's defensive, strategic, meant for smaller fighters facing larger opponents. But Yuan wanted something more dynamic, more visual, so he amplified everything. The hand movements became exaggerated, almost hypnotic. The footwork turned liquid, with Jackie weaving and ducking in patterns that looked more like dance than fighting. And the speed? They cranked it up until the strikes blurred on camera. To learn it, Jackie spent 2 weeks training with Yuan Xiu-Tian, the old master who played his teacher in the film, and who happened to be Yuan Wu-Ping's real father. The elder Yuan was a harsh instructor, old school in every sense. He'd smack Jackie's hands if his form was wrong, make him hold positions until his legs shook, drill the same movements hundreds of times until they became instinctive. Jackie later admitted he hated the training, but loved the result because the snake style gave him something Bruce Lee never had. A fighting method that looked elegant and deadly at the same time, but also somehow playful, unpredictable. When audiences saw him strike for the first time in full snake form, they'd never seen anything like it. Number 6. Yuan Xiu-Tian, who played the beggar master, didn't want to be in the movie. At 60 years old, he'd retired from performing, content to teach and let his son carry the family legacy forward. But Yuan Wu-Ping begged. He needed someone audiences would believe as a master, someone with real martial arts credibility and the acting chops to play drunk and dangerous at the same time. His father kept saying no, citing his age, his creaky knees, the fact that he'd already had his time on screen. But Yuan knew something his father didn't. This role wasn't about youth or flash. It was about presence, wisdom mixed with mischief, and nobody could deliver that like Yuan Xiu-Tian, so he changed tactics. Instead of asking his father to act, he asked him to teach, telling him the film needed authentic snake style, real technique, not movie tricks. The elder Yuan agreed to consult, showed up to set, demonstrated a few moves for Jackie, and somewhere in that process, Yuan Wu-Ping started filming. By the time his father realized he was being recorded, they had hours of footage. Yuan Xiu-Tian was furious. Then he watched the playback. He saw himself moving, teaching, embodying exactly what the role needed. And quietly, he stopped protesting. He stayed on set, refined the character, and ended up delivering one of the most beloved performances in martial arts cinema history. He didn't just play the beggar master, he was the beggar master, and audiences felt that authenticity in every frame. Number 7. The final fight wasn't choreographed in advance. Yuan Wu-Ping had a rough outline, a beginning and an ending, But everything in between was improvised on set over 3 days of exhausting shooting. Jackie and Huang would discuss the next sequence, try different combinations, see what looked good, what felt right, and then film it. Sometimes they'd nail it in one take. Other times they'd reset 20 times trying to land the perfect angle or timing. There was no stunt coordinator calling out precise movements because UN wanted the fight to feel real, reactive, like two fighters genuinely trying to beat each other. The risk was enormous. Without tight choreography, injuries became more likely. Jackie took several hard hits during the sequence, including one kick to the jaw that left him seeing stars. But the payoff was worth it because that final battle doesn't look choreographed. It looks like a war, desperate and brutal, with Jackie using every trick he'd learned throughout the film to survive. The snake versus eagle shadow dynamic came through perfectly, showing two completely different fighting philosophies colliding. Huang's style was direct, powerful, overwhelming. Jackie's was evasive, tricky, turning his opponent's strength into weakness. And when Jackie finally landed the winning move, audiences erupted not because it was flashy, but because it felt earned. 3 days of hell for 5 minutes of screen time. That was the equation, and it made cinema history. Number 8. Jackie nearly died filming the movie's most famous stunt. Not the final fight, not a complicated wire sequence, a simple backflip. About halfway through the film, Chien Fu gets cornered and has to escape by flipping backward over a table, landing in a courtyard, and running. Jackie had done the move 1,000 times in training. It was basic, almost insulting to ask someone with his experience to treat it carefully. So, he didn't. He went for it full speed. No safety mat because the camera angle wouldn't hide it. No harness because it would restrict his movement. He launched himself backward, rotated perfectly, and came down wrong. His foot caught the edge of the courtyard step, his ankle rolled, and he collapsed. The pain was immediate and intense. The crew thought it was broken, rushed him to a local clinic where an old doctor examined it, moved it around, and declared it a bad sprain. He wrapped it, told Jackie to rest for a week, and sent him away. Jackie was back on set the next day, high on painkillers, and finished the scene. You can see it in the film if you watch closely. The way he lands, favoring his right leg, the brief grimace before he runs. It's all real. Later, Jackie admitted the injury never fully healed, causing problems for years during action sequences. But in the moment, stopping wasn't an option. The production was low budget, the schedule was tight, and Jackie had spent too long trying to prove himself. One sprained ankle wasn't going to stop him from finally having his breakthrough. Number 9. The film was shot in 22 days. Not 22 shooting days over a few months. 22 consecutive days of non-stop filming from dawn until the equipment literally couldn't function anymore. The budget was minuscule, even by Hong Kong standards, forcing Yuen Wuping to get creative with every aspect of production. Locations were borrowed, sets were minimal, costumes were pulled from Yuen's family collection of old martial arts gear. There was no money for multiple takes unless absolutely necessary, which meant actors had to be prepared before cameras rolled. Jackie thrived under those conditions because it reminded him of his training days, where you did things right the first time or suffered consequences. But the crew struggled. Cameramen worked until their eyes couldn't focus. Sound engineers jury-rigged equipment that kept breaking down in Hong Kong's humid weather. Yuen Wuping directed, while simultaneously choreographing the next scene in his head, sometimes redesigning sequences because they couldn't afford the props or location they'd originally planned. Lunch breaks were 15 minutes, bathroom breaks were coordinated like military operations, and through it all, nobody complained because they could feel something special happening. The energy on set was electric, desperate, like they were stealing time from the universe. Jackie later said it was the most exhausting and exhilarating experience of his career because every moment mattered. There was no room for ego, no time for artistic debates. You showed up, you performed, you moved on, and somehow, that intensity translated directly to the screen. Number 10. When Snake and the Eagle's Shadow premiered, it did so with zero marketing. The studio had no faith in the film, so they didn't spend money promoting it. No billboards, no television spots, just a quiet release in a handful of Hong Kong theaters during a slow week when nothing else was opening. Jackie attended the first public screening, sitting in the back row, terrified and hopeful. The theater was maybe a third full, people who'd wandered in because they had nothing better to do. The lights went down, the film started, and for the first 10 minutes, silence. Jackie's heart sank. Then came the first big laugh. Someone in the middle of the theater cracking up at one of Chien-Fu's pratfalls. Then another laugh, louder. By the time the beggar master appeared, the entire audience was engaged, reacting to every joke, every fight, every moment. Jackie had never heard anything like it. He'd been in successful films before, but always as a stunt performer, never as the lead, never as the reason people were laughing and cheering. When the credits rolled, the audience applauded. Not politely, enthusiastically. And as they filed out, Jackie listened to their conversations. They weren't talking about Bruce Lee. They weren't comparing him to anyone. They were talking about him, about Jackie Chan, about this weird, funny, amazing movie they'd just discovered. That night changed everything, because by the next morning, word of mouth had spread like wildfire through Hong Kong. Number 11. The success happened so fast it terrified everyone involved. Within a week of release, Snake in the Eagle's Shadow was playing in every major theater in Hong Kong. Lines wrapped around blocks. Shows sold out days in advance. The studio that had dumped it with zero promotion suddenly scrambled to print more copies, negotiate wider distribution, pump money into advertising that was now completely unnecessary because audiences were doing the marketing for them. Jackie went from anonymous to mobbed overnight. He couldn't walk down the street without being recognized, couldn't eat at his favorite noodle shop without crowds gathering. Yuen Wu-ping faced different pressure. Every studio in Hong Kong wanted him to direct their next project, offering budgets 10 times what he'd had for Snake. But he knew lightning doesn't strike twice by chasing it, so he made a gamble. He told Ing-Si Yuen they needed to make a follow-up immediately, while the momentum was hot, while audiences still wanted more of this new style. Not a sequel, something different but in the same spirit. That decision led directly to Drunken Master, which would premiere just months later and cement Jackie's status as a superstar. Number 12. Huang Zhang-li became so famous as the villain that he couldn't escape it. After Snake in the Eagle's Shadow, he was typecast as the bad guy in virtually every martial arts film for the next decade. Directors specifically requested the guy with the deadly kicks, and audiences expected him to play merciless killers. But Huang wasn't a villain. Off-screen, he was quiet, philosophical, more interested in teaching taekwondo than playing evil masterminds. He later admitted the fame felt like a trap because it limited his range as an actor. Yet he couldn't deny the work paid well and kept him employed consistently. Jackie stayed friends with him for years, occasionally visiting his training school in Korea. In interviews, Huang would joke that Jackie made him rich, but ruined his ability to play anything except murderous fighters. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. The film that liberated Jackie's career had simultaneously confined Huang's. Number 13. There's a deleted scene that almost made the final cut. Midway through the film, after Chien-Fu learns the basics of Snake style, but before the final confrontation, there was a sequence where he tries to impress a girl by showing off his new skills. He challenges local thugs, gets overconfident, and nearly gets killed until the beggar master saves him. The scene was meant to show his character growth hadn't made him wise yet, just cocky. They shot it over 2 days, spent money they didn't have on extras and location fees. But when Yuen watched it in editing, something felt wrong. The scene slowed the momentum, made Chien-Fu less likable, and most importantly, it telegraphed the final fight too much, so he cut it entirely, leaving just one shot from the sequence as a brief transition. That decision improved the film's pacing dramatically, but it also meant losing some of Jackie's best comedy work in the entire production. Number 14. Simon Yuen, the actor who played the beggar master, died just 3 years after the film's release. He'd come out of retirement for this one role, and it revitalized his career briefly, leading to appearances in Drunken Master and several other films. But his health had been declining for years, and the physical demands of shooting caught up with him. When he passed away in 1979, Jackie was devastated. He'd grown close to the older actor during filming, seeing him as both mentor and surrogate father. At the funeral, Jackie gave a speech about how Simon had taught him that Kung Fu wasn't about perfection, it was about personality. That lesson shaped everything Jackie did afterward. Years later, Jackie would say that every time he played a teacher or mentor role, he channeled Simon's energy, trying to give other young performers what Simon had given him. The beggar master in Snake in the Eagle's Shadow became his template for wisdom wrapped in humor. Number 15. the film sparked a genuine fighting style evolution. After Snake in the Eagle's Shadow became a phenomenon, martial arts schools across Hong Kong and Taiwan started teaching movie kung fu, techniques designed specifically to look good on camera rather than be practical in real combat. Traditional masters were horrified, claiming it bastardized centuries of authentic technique, but students didn't care. They wanted to move like Jackie, to flow like water, to make fighting look effortless and beautiful. Yuan Wuping's choreography had accidentally created a new branch of martial arts, one that prioritized aesthetics and entertainment over pure effectiveness. This split would define Hong Kong action cinema for the next 2 decades, with some choreographers pursuing realism while others chased spectacle. Jackie always walked the line between both, insisting his moves had to look possible even if they weren't practical. That philosophy came directly from Snake in the Eagle's Shadow, where every technique was grounded in real martial arts but amplified for maximum visual impact. Number 16. There was almost a sequel, not Drunken Master, which was a spiritual successor but an actual direct continuation of the Snake in the Eagle's Shadow story. The script was written, locations were scouted, and Jackie was contracted to return. The plot involved Chien Fu being hunted by the villain's family, seeking revenge, forcing him to master new techniques to survive. But as pre-production ramped up, Jackie pushed back hard. He felt a direct sequel would trap him in the same character, preventing him from exploring new styles and personas. He wanted to evolve, not repeat. Yuan Wuping agreed, though the studio fought them for months. Eventually, they compromised by making Drunken Master, which had similar tone and energy but completely different characters. That decision proved brilliant because it showed audiences Jackie could carry different roles, that his appeal wasn't tied to one character but to his unique blend of comedy and action. Number 17. The eagle claw technique used by the villain was considered so dangerous that Hong Kong martial arts associations issued warnings about it after the film's release. Eagle claw focuses on gripping and tearing, using fingers like talons to attack vulnerable points, tendons, and pressure zones. In real application, it can cause severe damage. After Snake in the Eagle's Shadow popularized it, emergency rooms across Hong Kong saw an uptick in hand and finger injuries from amateur martial artists trying to replicate the technique without proper training. Several dojos banned teaching it to beginners entirely. Huang Zhongli, who demonstrated real eagle claw in the film, later did public service announcements, warning young fans not to attempt the moves without supervision. The irony was thick. A comedy had accidentally inspired a wave of real injuries because audiences couldn't separate entertainment from reality. Number 18. Jackie performed one stunt in the film that he swore he'd never attempt again. During a chase sequence, Chien Fu jumps from a second-story balcony, catches a clothesline, swings across an alley, and crashes through a window on the opposite side. No wires, no net, just Jackie launching himself into empty air and hoping his timing was perfect. The crew set up cardboard boxes inside the window to cushion his landing, but if he misjudged the swing or released too early, he'd fall straight down into the alley below. Yuan Wuping wanted multiple takes from different angles. Jackie refused. One take, that's it, because he knew his nerve would break if he had to repeat it. The cameras rolled, he jumped, the line held, he swung across, and he crashed through the window exactly as planned. The whole crew erupted in cheers. But when Jackie stood up, covered in fake glass and breathing hard, he told Yuan, "Never again." And he meant it. Number 19. The film's impact extended far beyond Hong Kong. When it reached international markets, it changed how Western audiences viewed martial arts cinema forever. Before Snake in the Eagle's Shadow, kung fu films in America played mostly in grindhouse theaters and Chinatown cinemas, dismissed as cheap, violent curiosities with bad dubbing and worse acting. They were B-movies at best, exploitation at worst. Theater owners programmed them in late-night slots or weekend matinees for niche audiences only. Mainstream America didn't take them seriously. They'd seen Bruce Lee and called it a fluke, a one-time phenomenon that died with him. But this film's combination of humor and action appealed to mainstream crowds in ways nothing else had. Families showed up, kids dragged their parents, word spread beyond Asian communities into suburbs and small towns. It proved martial arts movies could be fun, accessible, even family-friendly without losing their edge. Distributors took notice immediately. scrambling to acquire Hong Kong titles they'd previously ignored. This led directly to the kung fu boom of the early 1980s, flooding American theaters with martial arts comedies that would eventually bring Jackie to Hollywood stardom. But it went deeper than commerce. Critics started taking the genre seriously for the first time, writing analyses of fight choreography and comedic timing like they were studying Chaplin. Film schools began dissecting Yuen Wu-ping's directing style, teaching his techniques alongside established masters. Universities held retrospectives, and suddenly, kung fu wasn't just action, it was cinema. All because one low-budget movie about a janitor learning snake style found a global audience hungry for something different, something that made them laugh as hard as it made them cheer. Number 20. Today, the original film elements are stored in climate-controlled vaults as cultural artifacts. In 2018, on the film's 40th anniversary, the Hong Kong Film Archive completed a full 4K restoration, scanning every frame, removing decades of degradation, and presenting Snake in the Eagle's shadow in better quality than its original theatrical release. Jackie attended the premiere screening, sitting in the same theater where he'd watched the first public showing 4 decades earlier. During a post-screening Q&A, someone asked if he ever imagined the film would be remembered this long. Jackie smiled and said no, that back then he was just trying to survive until the next paycheck. But watching it again, with a new generation laughing at the same jokes, cheering the same fights, he understood what they'd created. Not just a movie, but a moment when everything changed. When martial arts cinema stopped trying to be Bruce Lee and found its own voice. Bonus fact, the snake technique's final move, the one Jackie uses to defeat Huang, was invented the night before filming. Yuen Wu-ping couldn't figure out how to end the fight in a way that felt earned without being overpowered. Snake style was about evasion and precision, not knockout power. So how does the underdog win? Jackie suggested drawing from cat behavior, how they coil before pouncing. He demonstrated a move where he'd compress his entire body like a spring, then explode forward with a double palm strike to the chest. Yuen loved it immediately. They refined it for an hour, figured out the camera angles, and shot it first thing the next morning. One take, perfect. That move became iconic, referenced and copied in hundreds of martial arts films afterward, and it was born from desperation, from 2 artists scrambling to solve a problem with hours to spare. Just like everything else about Snake in the Eagle's shadow, Snake in the Eagle's shadow didn't follow the rules. It rewrote them. What started as a desperate gamble by a washed-up actor and a first-time director became the film that changed everything, that proved kung fu could make you laugh as hard as it made you gasp. Go ahead and like, subscribe, and drop a comment telling us which fact shocked you the most. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the snake wins not by being the strongest, but by being the smartest.